Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Elias.
And what shall we discuss now?
Interesting times. Annoying times, I would say.
Playing times.
Yeah, first of all, this present mass event. Is there any, let's say, any likelihood how long it will continue? With lockdowns, travel limitations, or whatever. Is there any that you can say we will have to cope with it the next 3 years, 5 years, or even longer?
I would say most likely it won't be extending that far.
Okay.
I would say that most likely it will begin to turn, I would say, in your next year.
Really? This is urgently needed. Because
Now, I would say that still remains to be seen how it will change, but I would say that in relation to this situation of lockdowns, that I would say for most of the world is becoming very tiresome.
exactly. It is. And this is also quite interesting because the lockdowns and all the limitations are extremely strong presently in Europe. Perhaps especially strong in Germany. I don't know. But in other countries, so for example, if you see pictures from Dubai, from the Emirates, or from China, or from other parts of the world, it's a very relaxing situation. And this is what, yeah, there are some explanations for that, but nevertheless, it's I'm shocked how it can be continue here in my country or in Europe so long, even if the facts are completely different and more and more, let's say, decision makers or let's say more and more people are telling no, it's not correct what you are saying about the numbers. So for example, my minister president, the governor, let's say in my state, he was telling horror scenarios about my state, and immediately after it, after that announcement, some clinics, one clinic and one is the head of intense care bed system in Saxony, both said, no, this is not the case. And I have presently well, I had my mom in the hospital, and or I still have my mother-in-law in the hospital, and the situation is quite relaxed there. So what is going on, and why
But
is
I
it
would
so?
say, and as I have expressed to other individuals recently, this is part of the point. This is part of the situation of influencing and encouraging people to pay attention to their own information. remember that one of the main, most important actions of this shift is shifting the importance to the individual, and in making the individual so important, in that it is also necessary to have the individual be self-directing, and in that be self-structuring, be more self-aware. But in order to do that, you have to actually shift the mindset of the average individual, which is the masses in your planet, that people are not accustomed to actually thinking for themselves. They think they do, but they don't.
Mm.
They are accustomed to being told what to do, what to think, how to do, what to be, in that even though they think that they are thinking for themselves, they only think that they are thinking for themselves because they have opinions. But this mass event has shown how much people are accustomed to following what they are told.
Yeah,
and
this is.
in this, what I would say is that you keep moving in these directions to encourage individuals to be looking around themselves, to be gathering their own information, to making their own evaluations, not simply listening to what they are being told and blindly following that. It doesn't matter that your hospitals are not full. It doesn't matter unless the people are actually paying attention and finding that information out for themselves. It doesn't matter if the hospitals are not full, if the people are still listening to the media tell them that they are full and overflowing.
Mm. Yeah, this is really, really shocking. Not only to myself, that the people, there have been so many activities. The facts are on the table, I would say, now for 4 months, and nevertheless, it continues as before. It's insane. It's yeah. It can be explained by strong beliefs, I would say, but how our politicians are acting, it reminds a lot on the Nazi time.
But wait, my friend. Let me also express to you very definitely, your politicians are just as suggestible as the rest of the population. They are part of the rest of the population. The politicians are not actually creating the information.
I know, but they are in, let's say, in a position that they could, if they want, think of their own. They could get information from different sources. They have people
Good,
who could do it,
good. But
and
they could, but the problem is that the people that are actually generating the influence and giving the information are physicians. And therefore, the people even in government are listening to them because I would say most people believe the physicians because most people would be expressing that physicians have no reason to not be truthful. And in that, I would say that it is a matter of recognizing that it is a matter of looking at payoffs.
I know, but it's so obvious, so at least to me, and obviously to many other people, perhaps not enough, but many people have recognized from the beginning in March that there is something wrong, and then over the year, the number gained, and in the meantime, it's if you are meeting with some friends from three households for playing cards, and you have a nice neighbor who could inform the police is coming, and is treating you worse than any drug dealer or killer or whatever. So it's so crazy. It must be noticed by many, but it's not the case. Or do they ignore it, recognize it, but are in fear of it? So it's really. I'm more and more speechless, I must say. Perhaps
But
I'm recognizing
what I
more.
would what I would say to you, my friend, is you are expressing from your perspective and from the position of being more aware. And therefore, certain factors seem obvious to you, and they are obvious to you, but that doesn't mean that they are obvious to everyone else. And in that, it is also a matter of recognizing that governments are made up of people, and those people are being given the same information as everyone else, and from the same sources as everyone else. And in that, those people in the government are reacting just like everyone else, just like the masses. When you speak to people in the masses, They are afraid of a virus. They are afraid of what they are being told. The people in government are afraid of the same things. And the people in government are the same as the people in your neighborhoods that are not actually going to the hospitals and investigating and seeing for themselves that the hospitals are not overflowing.
Okay.
Therefore, in that, this is a part of this situation, is that one of the factors is that people are making this separation still between the masses and government, as if government is some sort of entity in itself. It isn't. It is made up of people. They are people that are in certain positions, but it doesn't matter what their positions are. They are people, and they are reacting in the same manner as all the other people in the mass event. In this, I would say, in actuality, that the people in the government are equally as afraid as people in your neighborhoods, but because of their positions, they are in a difficult situation, because I would say most of the people in government would genuinely like to have been closing everything and locking everything down, in your terminology, from the very beginning, and have had it move in that direction for a solid year. But they also have to consider the directions of the people in the masses. The majority of the people are moving in the direction of being afraid. And therefore, the governments are responding to that majority, even though there seems to be a considerable number of people that are protesting against these directions. There are more people that are in favor of it. Therefore, they have 1 million people demonstrating against the situation, against the lockdowns, and expressing that they don't agree and that the situation is ludicrous. And you have tens of millions of people, millions and millions and millions of people that are listening to the physicians and are afraid and are saying, yes, let us isolate, let us move in the direction that the physicians are saying. And the government people are listening to them. Would you listen to 1 million people or 100 million people? More likely 100 million. In this, this is the point. The point is not for one person or one government or 1 million people to be being more self-aware and to be paying attention and giving themselves their own information, but for billions of people to be giving themselves their own information, to open their eyes, to begin to question, to begin to see that the situation isn't actually consistent, that it isn't actually making as much sense as they originally thought, and that evidence is not actually pointing in the direction that the physicians are telling them. And then to begin to question and then begin to seek out their own information, which they don't actually know where to find. Because if they can't trust the media, which they have trusted their entire lives, then who can they trust?
Okay.
Therefore, this is the point, my friend, is that we are addressing to an entire planet. And you are beginning to see that those of you that are self-aware or are more self-aware are not in the majority.
Okay. And how long will it take, most probably?
I would say that as difficult as it may be to believe, you have all been moving exceptionally fast in all of this, because in the span of less than a year, you already are in most countries throughout the world. There already is a significant number of people that are quietly but nonetheless beginning to question everything, and in that are beginning to look at the situation differently. We are speaking about your entire world, billions of people. That is a lot of people. And in that, I would say that it is a matter of recognizing that within less than a year of all these extremes, people are beginning to move. They are beginning to stop and look and pay attention and question. But that takes time also, because they don't know what to believe and they don't know where to find information. And that is the first direction that they are going to move in, looking outside of themselves, as usual, for information. And they don't know where to look because they can't trust the media. Therefore, where else do they find the information? They haven't quite realized yet that they find the information by paying attention to themselves and what they show themselves and giving themselves their own information, their own evidence, going physically to their local hospital and seeing for themselves. Are their hospitals overloaded with patients, or are they not? That is a very simple action to do, but the average individual doesn't think of it. Therefore, what I would say is they likely will be, I would say, within the next 6 months, generating a significant change. Because people are already questioning. But understand that that is still being countered. Because the people that are seeking control don't want to give up control that easily.
Yeah.
And therefore, there is this struggle that is occurring. And what is the familiar method is to move in insidious directions, such as creating new suggestions, such as using ideas such as Australia enforced a lockdown for a considerable time framework, and now they are almost free. Now, is that actually true? No. But that is the propaganda that is insidiously being expressed, which then people that don't know where to find accurate information, they hear something such as that, which is what? A rumor, which is then being circulated with purpose. And in that, then the people think, oh, we will support our government moving in the direction of another lockdown because then that will actually free us. There you see that there is still this back and forth, this interplay. But I would say that most likely within the next 6 months, that will be very difficult to continue because you've already created the experimental vaccines. Now that also has another say, because that has the potential to be used in a manner that promotes the control, because the vaccines that are being promoted now have the potential to create side effects and reactions. Therefore, that is another avenue in which there could be a potential direction that would nullify the vaccine, and it muddies it in a manner of speaking. It makes it a situation in which it isn't black and white. It isn't a cure. And therefore, in that can't be entirely trusted either. And I'm not saying that in relation to that there is anything necessarily intentionally wrong with the vaccine, but that realistically, creating a vaccine in relation to these types of cultures has the potential for reactions, which is understandable. But in that, that is also a factor that the physicians are aware of. Anyway, I would say that in that, it is a matter of that will change the scenario. But it will change the direction of it, but it still is a situation in which people will have to continue to move in a direction of giving themselves their own information and their own evidence. Therefore, I would say more realistically, it likely will be another 6 months after that, therefore approximately a year, in which the situation will change in a new direction. I cannot actually give you a concrete prediction about when this will absolutely be finished, but I can tell you that it should significantly change, significantly, within a year.
Has I ever contact, or does my body contains antibodies against COVID?
Antibodies against it? Yes.
My body, yes. And
Yes.
of my family members?
Yes.
All of them?
Yes.
When did we had contact with COVID, or when did this happen?
I would, realistically, my friend, I would say that every individual, almost every single individual in your world, but every individual in your, what you term to be civilized countries,
Mm-hmm.
has been exposed to this particular organism. Every individual, except for very, very, very remote places in your world, every other individual in your world has been exposed at one point or another to this organism. And in that, whether they are aware of it or not, this is the ironic part of this mass event, is that most of the people in your world haven't been affected by this organism, by this virus. Billions and billions of people have been exposed and have not developed the virus. And one of the reasons for that, one of the main reasons for that, is because, yes, you do have antibodies that would automatically fight against this particular organism, because this particular organism belongs to a family of organisms that you are very familiar with.
Yeah,
That in your world, this organism has been a part of your reality for many, many, many years. And therefore, in that, you have had a considerable amount of time to develop significant antibodies to be fighting against it and be somewhat immune to it.
So the vaccination is completely senseless.
I would say that
In terms of fighting against or preventing an outbreak of a disease,
is more
making money, okay, and some other ideas.
No. I would say that actually it is more psychologically effective than physically. That for most people, it will provide them with a sense of safety.
Okay.
And that, do they actually need it? No. Because their own bodies are practically immune to this virus anyway. But psychologically, emotionally, yes, in relation to those factors, I would say that it definitely will be helpful, and it definitely has a purpose, because it will help most people feel safe, and that is important, because as long as people don't feel safe, they aren't paying attention properly.
Nevertheless,
they are following their feelings.
Nevertheless, I would avoid any vaccine as long as possible.
I understand.
So I don't feel safe with vaccines.
I know, but that is because you are more aware and because you have more information, and therefore you don't feel safe with it. But for individuals that are less aware and that are already afraid, I would say that it provides a sense of safety and security for them, which that is significant.
Okay.
Because the more people feel safe, the more they can stop following their feelings and can start paying attention to their own evidence.
But I would say that lots of people who are allowing this vaccination will heavily be affected not only by the safety, but also by some effects on the immune system, so that it is destroyed or badly affected, or perhaps the people will even die from it.
And that is definitely a possibility. And I would say that that is actually, in some cases, even likely. But that is somewhat to be expected in this situation. Therefore, I would say that once again, it is a matter of the question of who do you pay attention to, 1 million or 100 million? If 1 million becomes sick and die from it, but 100 million are fraction of not reacting to it and then feeling safe and generating a perception that they are secure, then is it viable? Is it worth it? That is for you to decide.
Okay. This is
I would not discount that 1 million. But I would also say, as I have from the onset, that would also be the choice of that 1 million, and it would be the choice of the 100 million, and it would be the choice of all of you who you pay attention to.
Then you mentioned dispossession as a strong potential during this present mass event. And I try to protect against it just with finding and property, but obviously we were not successful. Perhaps we were looking in the wrong places, but yeah, it was strange. Now we are looking on buying or taking the money from the bank account and investing it into gold and silver. Do you have any suggestions, any opinions to it, any statements? How to avoid dispossession?
Are you asking what would be the most viable expression of possession?
Exactly. So what will happen? Okay, yeah. Continue, please.
I would not necessarily move in the direction of commodities such as gold and silver. I would actually express that what likely has now and moving forward the most value would be property.
So land. But what is the issue? So we were really looking for it, even if we think the is too high, the prices are overheated. But nevertheless, we were looking for a certain. So there is not much on the market. What we found on the market wasn't suitable at all. So it was near to rivers, for example, or it was otherwise not suitable, or it was what else? We asked a real estate agent, and all of a sudden the property disappeared. So it was there in the internet for weeks, perhaps even months, and I asked for it, and all of a sudden it was gone. Very strange. So where can we find a property to
First of all, I would say that you don't have to be moving in a direction of not being near water, because that isn't necessarily something that is potentially dangerous. It depends on where the property is and what the water is. Not everywhere where there is water will necessarily become dangerous because of climate change.
Yep.
In actuality,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
any areas that have water now actually likely will be good in relation to the changes with climate change. But what I would say is, what is important is that you are moving in directions of investing in property that supports everyone that you care about or that you love. Therefore, most definitely family.
Mm-hmm. So it's a larger property with growing vegetables, something like that.
I would say that if you are in a place that would support growing your own food, then that is excellent. But you don't have to be. I would say that I would remind you what I expressed in the beginning of this forum when we were discussing the shift and what it would likely appear to be futurely. And in that, how I was expressing to all of you that it wouldn't be necessary for you to have the type of exchange system that you have now, because people would eventually be moving in directions of what they genuinely enjoy or what, and in doing so, that people would be engaging more of a direction of sharing, and the system of exchange would not be based on money. Therefore, in that, what I would say to you is it isn't entirely necessary that you have land that you could be self-sustaining with. If that is what you want to do, that is acceptable, but that it won't be entirely necessary. A bread baker will bake bread because they love to bake bread, not because they can eat it all. And in that, will be content to share that. In a manner of speaking, the exchange system that you are moving to, and I wouldn't even say that you're going to move to because you already are moving in this direction, is more of a bartering system than a system of money. that would be part of the reason that I would express to you that investing in commodities such as gold or silver or precious gems is not necessarily the most viable direction, because that won't necessarily have the greatest value eventually.
Okay. And how fast do we have to find something? So is there an immediate, let's say, effect or crash of a currency, crash of a bank system or something like that going on?
No, everything is not immediate. It is already in process of moving in these directions, and it is doing so gradually, and it is doing so in a manner that is definitely not creating tremendous drama and not creating trauma. You have to be moving slowly in these directions in relation to the money for decades. Actually, for more than half a century.
Yeah, since 1971.
For that, even before that.
Okay.
Say
Then,
that you're in these directions for quite some time, and you continue to do so. Therefore, in that, I would say, even in relation to this mass event, in many places in your world, currency, actual physical money, is not being accepted. And people are not distressed about it.
okay.
They are not being overwhelmed by